Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Welcome to our Westchester Weekly Update. Today is Monday, October 16th, and we're happy to share with you some information about where we stand on some of the key issues in Westchester County. I'll be joined in a few minutes, as I am each week, by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, who will help us with some of the issues that we're updating. And we always invite one of our local elected officials from one of the villages, towns, or cities to join us to give an update on their community. And in a few minutes, it's going to be my pleasure to bring back the mayor of the village of Hastings-on-Hudson, Nikki Armacost. And Mayor Armacost has been with us before, but we're very happy in each of these updates to talk about one of the communities in Westchester County. We are a mosaic of 45 different local governments, but every one of them are important, and every one of them helps define what Westchester is. We try to work closely together between the county and the local governments, and we're very happy that Mayor Armacost is here to talk about Hastings issues. We're going to touch on sort of a recap of what we discussed last week in separate events, where we are with our efforts to lower taxes and to help other local governments lower taxes, where we are with crime statistics, and then also some of the environmental initiatives that we recently have signed into law that's been accomplished by the Board of Legislators and our administration. And then also we'll touch on the parks activities that are coming up over the next week or so, and we'll touch on the migrant situation as well. That has really been static now for about 4 months, but we'll go over the numbers again so that you're aware of them. We track this on an ongoing basis, and we hope that we find that these updates are somewhat helpful to you. Right now, we're at the time of the year where we're getting ready for the 2024 budget. We operate in Westchester County on a calendar year, fiscal year. So our fiscal year begins January 1st and it ends December 31st. And that means that sitting here in mid-October, we have to have put in place, roughly by this time in December, maybe a shade later, a budget that's been adopted by the Board of Legislators and signed into law by myself as executive, so that on January 1st we have an on-time budget. We have never, in Westchester County, failed to have an on-time budget. We've never failed to have a balanced budget. And some of the issues you see in Washington, D.C., where they need continuing resolutions to keep the government going, that's because they don't have a completely adopted budget. The state government generally adopts their budget. Their fiscal year begins April 1st, and routinely they try to adopt the budget in and around April 1st. Sometimes it forms a little bit later. This past year, I think it was about a month late, and there's some ongoing activities they have to do to keep going. But here in Westchester County, and to the credit of the local villages, towns, and cities, all of the municipal governments, we have always hit the mark in our budgeting. In the process to do that, one of the things that we're at the point of now is we finalize from an executive branch standpoint the budget before we present it to the legislature and to the public, is to get public input before we finalize the budget. That public input session is happening today. This day, Monday, October 16th, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., members of my executive team, myself included, will be available at Greenburgh Public Library to take any input before we finalize the budget. This is not a public hearing on the budget. The budget has not yet been presented. That will come in the months of November and early December by the Board of Legislators. We will submit a final budget that will have breakdown information, each of the different departments. It'll talk about revenues and expenditures, and then they will hold public sessions, informational sessions around the county, and then a final public hearing in which people will comment on the specifics of the budget as presented. That's not what we're doing today. Today we're going to take whatever input we get in general terms and in the final few days before we finalize the budget. So we get input in the front end. This is something we began when we took office in 2018, and we thought it was helpful to not just have the public comment once the document is done, but to give us input before the document is done, so that you'd have some sense of trying to influence our thinking as we look at it. The public budget session today will not be explanatory. We won't be explaining what's in the budget because there is no budget at this point. We do know that for the 2023 season, we have a $2.3 billion budget. We have over 4,000 employees in the county, and we have the traditional responsibilities that we've had, from delivering social services, providing correction facilities, incarceration facilities. We have a county police department. We have a parks and recreation department. We have a department of environmental facilities that has different structures that both serve as transfer stations for garbage collection, for recyclables, to treat sewerage. We have a public health department. You saw a lot of them during COVID. We have a community mental health department, which is involved in a lot of services that are delivered to help those in mental health circumstances. And the responsibilities of those departments and more are what's included in the budget. And like any document, it has both revenue and expenditures. We lay out how many people are employed by the county government, how many slots we have that we could in theory fill, and all of the other different nuances of public policy to be debated by the board with public input. The one nice part about the county government, similar to local governments and unlike the state and federal government, is there's a time and a place for public input. You don't have that in the state government. You do not have that in the federal government. You go through your representatives, and they're the ones that have public dialogue and public input. But at the village, the town, the city, and the county level, you have direct input over the budget. And of course, that manifests itself ultimately in the amount of property taxation, which is the only discretionary part of the revenue side that we have. Every other revenue side, we must go to the state for authority to deal with. So all of that will be laid out in the next few weeks. But today it begins with a public input session, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're at the Greenberg Public Library. That's 300 Tarrytown Road in Elmsford. If you're traveling on 287, exit 4 of 287 will get you off at the right exit so you can get to the Greenberg Public Library. You can also come up West Hartsdale Road. That has a connection off of the Bronx River Parkway down to the part of Hartsdale. It'll take you right to the same destination, and the road system is pretty convenient. It's a beautiful library. We'll be in the multi-purpose room, and we look forward to anybody who wants to come. We do expect there to be testimony from different organizations that are funded by the county, and those folks will come. They're welcome to give verbal testimony for a few minutes. We have to limit the time that people speak, but they are welcome to submit any written information, and certainly you might have a 3 or 4 page document that tells you what you think we should do, and you hit the highlights in your verbal presentation so we can hear it, and then we can go on to hear the next person. All of that's this afternoon. We hope you'll participate if you choose to. And then a little later, we're going to be revealing our capital budget. That's one of the different component pieces of the budget, where we talk about the money that we're going to be spending to make capital improvements. What roads are we going to fix? What bridges are we going to fix? What are we going to do to our major facilities like sewer treatment plants and other things that need upgrades? And the capital money that we allocate is money that we bond for. We borrow on the bond market and we pay back over generally a 20-year period of time. In the same way, if you're going to fix your house, you get a home improvement loan, and you get the money up front, you make the home improvement, and then you pay it back over a certain period of time. And the fact that the county has a AA plus bond rating, AA1, gives us a very good rating for when we borrow money. It puts us in good position to be able to borrow at favorable rates, and we do pay interest, but we do that over time in the same way that you would when you're doing something in your home. So that will come out a little bit later this week, and that'll be the source of discussion and dialogue. But again, today, budget public input session. We have one this year, Greenberg. Do stop by if you can. Next, we'll go to the village of Hastings on Hudson. We have in Westchester County regions of the county that people are familiar with. And I was born, grew up in Mount Vernon. I've lived in the city of Rye. And of course, I've traveled all over the county numerous times and represented parts of it in other positions. It's a diverse county, more diverse than people think of it being, because folks in New York City tend to see the suburbs as monolithic. We're one big white suburb with green grass, and everybody's wealthy. And of course, we know we've got urban parts of the county, we have suburban parts of the county, we have rural parts of the county, and those on the river side, those on the Hudson, on the Sound Shore side, a little bit different nuance, those in the central part of the county, a little bit different. So all of those different things make up certain personalities. There are a number of villages that are located along the Hudson River. They were founded many years before some of the inland communities were founded, because river was the means of transport in those days. And those river towns each have their own distinct personality. When you go from the big city of Yonkers north, the first village you hit is the village of Hastings on Hudson. 8,500 people, gorgeous views of the Hudson River, very cute, lovely downtown. As you might imagine, I would know all the restaurants, some terrific restaurants, and community events and activities. It is a great hometown, and if you're on the river towns and you're in a Dobbs Ferry in Ardsley, Irvington, Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, there's always debate about which one is nicer. From my perspective, they're all great, and we're happy to work with all of them. And Hastings on Hudson has been particularly noted in recent weeks for their environmental policies. I'm sure the mayor is going to talk about that in a second, where they have been given the highest designation of any of our local municipalities in terms of their environmental policies, getting silver designation in the climate smart community. So she's very rightfully proud of her community, and she's done a lot as a public official to contribute to those policies. She served as a village trustee before becoming mayor. So I give you the mayor of the village of Hastings on Hudson, the Honorable Nicola Armacost. We know as Nikki. She prefers to be known that way. Madam Mayor, thank you for being with us.
such a delight to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, County Executive, for inviting me to be here at your weekly Westchester briefing and to tell everyone about Hastings-on-Hudson and explain why we think it's so special. And I want to say I appreciate your diplomacy vis-a-vis the other river towns, but of course we think we're the most spectacular. So I think you were very, very diplomatic. For anyone who hasn't visited our village, we are one of the charming river towns that the county executive mentioned that grace the banks of the Hudson River. Manhattan is a quick 35-minute train ride away with one of the most stunning commutes you could possibly ask for, featuring exquisite views of the Palisades. We think we have the perfect location. Despite the proximity to the bustling city, there are many parks and green spaces in the village that make you feel as if you're in the country. Because of our setting over the years, Hastings has attracted writers, actors, musicians, and artists who strive to capture its beauty. Jasper Cropsey, a famous painter who was part of the Hudson River School, lived here and produced many stunning landscapes. His former home is now a museum in the village. Other accomplished residents include Jacques Lipschitz, whose work is exhibited at the MoMA, Billy Burke, better known as Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, and the wizard himself, Frank Morgan. We have Grammy-winning musicians and published authors. And as of 2 weeks ago, with the addition of Louis Bruce, we can now boast 7 Nobel laureates. The supervisor of Greenberg calls us Brainy Town. I'm not 100% sure if that's a compliment, but we'll take it. And just last week, we celebrated a street co-naming for Doctors Mamie and Kenneth Clark, who were civil rights activists and the authors of the Doll study that played a key role in Brown versus the Board of Education desegregation case. And thanks again for joining us and for your moving speech, County Executive. We have a thriving farmers market that attracts visitors from all over the county. So many of the vendors end up opening brick and mortar shops that we end up having them full time, which we love. We have a tiny but vibrant downtown where you can find a broad range of delightful restaurants, wine bars, and shops, and where the phrase shopping local really means something. And of course, we love to host people from other locations downtown. We collaborate with the River Towns Chamber of Commerce and sister municipalities on holiday trolleys and encourage residents to visit all of our communities. So we're very, very closely linked to one another. And we host a range of cultural events, particularly in the summer, including jazz, sunset concerts on the waterfront, and special events such as our classic small town Memorial Day parade that everyone loves to join. And most recently, Oktoberfest. And while none of us can compete with Sleepy Hollow, we do actually have a spectacular array of Halloween activities for people to enjoy in the village. We have lots of fabulous parks and recreation facilities, a pool everyone loves that was renovated after being devastated by Hurricane Ida, ball fields, tennis, pickleball courts, bocce. We've also created pocket parks in our downtown to ensure that residents in our most densely populated areas have a place to enjoy the outdoors. Our most exciting new park is Quarry Park, a rehabilitated town dump that is now a gorgeous area for quiet contemplation. We invite you to come and join. It's just off the Old Croton Aqueduct. As you mentioned, we're currently the highest ranking climate smart community in the state, thanks to the effort of residents, volunteers, and our staff, and we are very, very proud of that. All of these things together help to define Hastings' character and distinguish us from our neighbors. Our village is truly magical, and we welcome you all to come and visit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice
Pleasure
to see
to be
you.
with you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Nikki Armacost, mayor of the village of Hastings-on-Hudson, and certainly a place to visit and to see some of the great fun that's going to be there over the course of the fall season into the winter. And as she points out, there's a lot of different community events that you can find out about that they welcome friends from all across Westchester County to join them and be part of the fun in Hastings. So thank you again, Nikki, for being with us. With Ken Jenkins, we're going to cover a couple of different things. Last week, we had a trio of press events in which we highlighted three basic issues. We talked about taxes, we talked about the environment, and we talked about crime. And in each one of those different things, we took sort of an update for our Westchester residents as to where we stood in trying to moderate taxes, moderate and effectively fight crime, and what we were doing to advance the environment. So I'd like to just recap those three things because they do represent probably the three most discussed issues in general at any point in time here in Westchester County. There are obviously things happening in Washington, D.C., there are things happening on the international scene that has really taken over our attention, far more so than the things that are happening in local government. But nonetheless, our responsibility is to deliver in that local government sphere of county and regional activities with the municipalities. First, I'm going to touch on the tax situation over the course of our time in county government. Let me just, at 100 miles an hour, mention that when you pay your property taxes, and you know in your head you have a total tax bill, what you pay in property taxes is an aggregation of at least three different taxing sources: your school district, the municipality that you live in, the village and town, or the town alone, or the city, and the county government. All three of those entities equal your total tax bill. In some parts of the county, there are fire districts. In some parts of the county, there are library districts. There are some other specialty districts from time to time. But those are the three major ones. And generally speaking, your school taxes represents 2/3 of your property taxes. So when someone says Westchester County has one of the highest tax burdens, the highest tax burden, the second highest tax burden, 2/3 of that tax burden has nothing to do with the county or the local government. It is your school district. And you get the right to vote on your school budgets, you get the right to vote for your school trustees, and that happens at a time separate from when the rest of elections are at hand. So for those who are interested, you can focus on those issues with the school district, and they have to have certain types of bonds and referendum go before the voters. Your municipal government is probably about 15% and to 20%. The county is a little more than the municipal government. There are a few exceptions out there. The city of Yonkers, the local government runs the school district, so what you pay the city of Yonkers is much more significant as a percentage of the total, not necessarily higher or lower in property taxes. But the county level of government, if you pay an average of about $20,000 tax bill, you might pay more, you might pay less, do the math. But at a $20,000 tax bill, you're paying about $13,500 of it to the school district. You're paying about $3,000 to maybe $3,500 to the county. So it's that $3,000 to $3,500 that we in county office, county board of legislators, our executive branch have control over. Over the last 4 years, we have lowered the total county property tax levy in each of those 4 years, and there has not been a commensurate lowering of county taxes in any memorable history. If it happened back in the 1920s or at some point in time. It has not happened in the modern era. They had some freeze of taxes at various times, but not cuts. 4 straight years, we've cut it a little bit. You're paying less in property tax levy today than you paid with your 2018 bill. So it's gone down over the course of that period of time. That represents 4 budgets. We have a 5th budget that we'll be releasing, as I said, within the month, and that'll give you an idea of where we're at. We're obviously concerned about keeping tax rates low. One of the important things we've done, in addition to keeping county property taxes down, is to share back revenue that we receive from sales taxes with the local governments. And the point we made last week, if you want to look at that particular video, it's there to be seen in some detail, is that Westchester County, more so than any other county government in downstate New York, has taken revenue that we receive from sales taxes and have shared it back with local communities to give them a revenue stream to help them keep their local taxes lower. Of the last 1% that was added in rate, we have shared back 20% of that to local villages, all the towns, and the 2 small cities get a piece of that, and 10% goes to the relevant school districts in those municipalities. The 4 major cities have their own major sales tax structure: White Plains, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, and Yonkers. And what we did back in 2019 was equalize that rate across the county. Yonkers still a little higher than everybody else, but the equalized rate is the same rate now all across Westchester County in all communities. It's the same rate as paid in Rockland County or Putnam County. So if you're living up in Somers, you're not paying any more sales tax. If you go up Route 6 and go into Putnam County, you're not paying any more in Westchester. If you cross the bridge and go into Rockland County, it's the same rate across the board. The city still has a higher sales tax, and Long Island still has a higher sales tax. So by equalizing that and generating certain revenue, we share that revenue back with local governments. We made the point last week that many of those local governments have themselves with additional revenue and through their own public policy, and credit them, the local governments, for what they've done. We don't take credit for it, but we've been able to drive revenue to them that has helped Greenburgh freeze property taxes, Somers, Harrison, a number of other communities that we spotlighted that have either lowered taxes in a given year or a couple of years and then froze them in other years with additional revenue that the county has shared from county sales tax revenue. And I think that tells you our commitment to lowering taxes is not only what we do for ourselves, but what we do for the local governments. That represents another piece of your tax bill. If we are 20% of your tax bill and the municipalities are 15%, then we're trying to affect both of those two. And we do provide some additional money to the school districts. It's not really a decisive amount for them, but it helps. What's important about that is to understand that Sullivan County shares nothing back with their municipalities. Putnam County shares nothing back with their municipalities. Suffolk, Putnam, Sullivan, no share back. The share backs in some other communities like Rockland County is fairly low. I think it's 6%. Hopefully I'm not misquoting the information that we have available. And where we have share backs, and there are share backs in Orange County, it's not universal. We make ours universal share back to the greatest extent possible. There are 20 villages in Westchester County. All 20 of them received money back from the money that we collect at the county level. There are 19 towns. All 19 towns get that share back. There are 6 cities. 4 of them have their own sales tax. I've mentioned them already, the 4 big cities. The 2 smaller ones, Peekskill and Rye, get money shared back from the county. So in what we're trying to do, we have lowered county property taxes over the last few years. That is a trackable, provable statistic. I know when you get into campaign season, people will say things and they'll make up what they think is a narrative that's an alternate narrative. They think it helps them. But the facts are clear and they're trackable. You can find them on our website by looking at the actual county budgets, and we're happy to go over those numbers with you. But we've been able to reduce taxes in Westchester County, county taxes, and try to help keep local taxes lower. The school tax issue is a major issue. And having served in the state legislature, the place for that decision is going to be in Albany, where they discuss what it is they require schools to do in terms of mandates and how they go about financing local school services. And there is a debate that says it should be less about property taxes, more about income taxes, and make a shift in there. That shift will have to come in Albany. It's not within the authority of the county government. But that was what we talked about last week about taxes. I want Ken Jenkins to talk a little bit about some of the things we did, which we were part of, on environmental protections. Ken?
Thanks, George. So out of the 3 items, so first we did talk about taxes, and because sharing is caring, we made sure to do that in the legislation that was adopted. The second component of that was talking about the environment. So we had significant milestones for the residents of Westchester County. County Executive Latimer signed 4 critical environmental bills that have been crafted by this administration through specifically our Director of Research, Ellen Hendricks, and Director of Environment, Energy, and Sustainability, Pete McCart, and refined through months of collaboration with the Board of Legislators. These bills represent the county's continued commitment to enhancing the quality of life for our community by addressing pressing issues and meeting the evolving needs of our residents. The signing of these bills is a testament to the power of collaboration and the steadfast dedication of the Board of Legislators to improve the lives of every Westchester County resident and protecting our planet's future. Through their hard work and our shared commitment to good governance, we've crafted and signed these bills that address these pressing needs. Further, these bold steps towards expanding access to electric vehicle charging stations, electrifying our car and bus fleet, and continue that reflection of the determination to lead the way in sustainability. We'll continue to be proud to serve all the people of Westchester, and together we're building a brighter and cleaner future for Westchester County. That environmental law package includes those 4 bills. First, the Lead-Free Parks Act, which creates a process for monitoring and remediating the drinking water in all of our county parks to ensure its safety. The second bill was addressing asthma in communities of color amendment, which will create a subcommittee of the African American Advisory Board dedicated to studying the high rates of asthma in communities of color, and it certainly includes our folks from the Hispanic Advisory Board as well. The Renewable Energy Database Act will allow the county to assist municipalities in their move to create a more reliable energy future by establishing a database to encourage the siting of renewable energy infrastructure on municipal properties throughout the county. And finally, the Equity Environmental Legislation Act, which will ensure that all communities are treated fairly when the county is considering any new law in an effort to combat historical cases of violation of environmental justice needs. In addition to all of these legislative wins, Westchester County is continuing to be proud to announce its ambitious efforts to expand access to electric vehicle charging stations and electrify the county's bus and car fleet. Nearly 90% of all the county's 325 buses are either electric or hybrid, electric hybrid. Additionally, 33 public EV charging stations have been installed. Another 206 are in process, which will be up and running by the summer of 2024, with at least another 148 being installed by the fall of 2025. This is in line with the county's dedication, County Executive Latimer, our team, and the County Board of Legislators' dedication to its sustainability and a cleaner, greener future. This county, the county, is taking significant strides to reduce our carbon footprint and promote the adoption of electric vehicles. By enhancing the accessibility of EV charging stations, buses, and the county's EV fleet, Westchester is encouraging our residents to embrace electric transportation options, reducing emissions, and contributing to a much healthier environment. These bills are part of the three things.
Thanks, Ken. And in addition to these four bills, the legislature took leadership earlier in this year to pass a bill that reduces the amount of single-use plastic materials, forks, knives, things of that nature, in the Westchester County waste streams. That's 5 significant environmental bills passed here in Westchester County. The Board of Legislators did the debate, reached out to advocacy groups, and I was honored to sign them into law. These last 4 bills that Ken talked about, Ken, myself, Peter McCart from our team, Ellen Hendricks from our team, Steve Bass from our team, and John Nona, our county attorney, went over a series of state legislative proposals, 80 of them, and determined what could we do at the county level that would, in essence, mirror what was being proposed at the state level. These actions, the 4 that we've taken and the other 76, are still possible at the state level, and if they do pass them, it'll override what we've done locally. But we've shown leadership on issues that has already, come on the state agenda of things that are important, and we don't know that that's precedented in the past. So we're very proud of those things. And I should point out, when we had the Environmental Bond Act vote a year ago, we had almost 70% approval rating for that bond act, $4.2 billion, that puts money aside for us to implement some of these things. It's one thing to say we want to have an electric vehicle infrastructure of charging stations, or we want to be able to go after lead-free water in our parks by changing the physical process of how water is collected and distributed. All of those things cost money to do, and having money from the Environmental Bond Act helps us implement those things. And it's important, I think, for us to see that there was widespread support for this in Westchester County. You had to have bipartisan support in order for that bond act to do as well as it did here in Westchester County, and it did, and I think we show that. So we talk about taxes, we talk about the environment, and let's talk about crime. The point that we made in last week's press conference, that we had members of the county police with us here to talk about what they actually do to fight crime. And that's the important part of this. Westchester County fully funds the county police. They are funded at the highest level they have ever been funded historically, and they talked about what are the mechanics of what they do for patrol, for detective work, for special operations on the water, in the air, what they do in terms of, bomb squad units is a more technical name for these things. We use sort of the common language of it, how they have a canine corps to be able to sniff out certain types of things, as well as identify bloodhound work that identifies individuals. All of these things professionalized at the county level to work closely with local governments to better fight crime. And we gave some statistics which we thought were important. We compared the period of time ending in 2017 and the period of time ending in 2022. In that 5-year period of time, that's a reasonable amount of time to take a look back. It's not a 1-year uptick or a 1-year downturn. It's 5 years, reasonable amount of time. It also codifies the 5 full years that we have statistics in which our administration is in office. Now, there's criticisms, from those in the political process, people running for office. They want to try to make a name for themselves, and they'll toss things out on Twitter, and they do that for political purposes. They will want to misdirect your attention. They want to sell an argument that somehow crime is going up in Westchester County to make themselves more appealing to you, when in fact, our administration, working through the police, it's really the police that get the credit for this. It's the community policing and the local level, the police working in Mount Kisco and Cortland with the community groups that have had the positive impact. It isn't a politician either in office or running for office that takes the credit. But the important thing to understand is that when we show what's happening over a 5-year period of time, that's a longer period of time to draw a trend. If there's no crime at 8 o'clock in the morning and a crime is committed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, somebody can say, crime is increasing. There was no crime in the morning, there's crime in the afternoon. We went through a period of COVID where our whole social structure shrunk down. People stayed home. They weren't out they weren't out in the community. We didn't take that year as the baseline to say, look, crime is down. Yeah, crime was down. Violent crime was down during COVID because people weren't out in the community. We took a full 5-year scope to make the comparison. And we also made the comparison between the prior administration, where they were in the last day they were in, and where we were in the last day that's documented, the end of 22. We'll see 23 statistics when 23 is over at some point in time in early 24. So it's important to understand that you have to have a critical grasp of what the statistics say. These are trackable statistics, and the statistics are reported by the different police departments. We don't make the numbers up. Each police department, there's 40-some-odd police departments and the county police department, they report these statistics to the state, and they aggregate them. And the aggregation is violent crime, 2017 to 2022, is down 17%. The property crimes are down much less, 3%, and the aggregate between the two is a 5% reduction in crime from the end of 2017 to the end of 2022. Now, and we were very clear about this, we saw one area where there was an uptick in crime, and that's auto thefts. And we're dealing with auto thefts rings that are coming from outside of Westchester County, in the Bronx, coming out of Connecticut, and they can travel across interstate barriers very quickly. And that makes it much more difficult for us to anticipate and break up those types of rings. And we have right now our professionals working on that. But when you criticize the statistics, you're really criticizing the police professionals. You're drawing into question that you don't believe that what our police is doing is accurate, because they're the ones that are reporting the stats, and they're the ones that are creating the stats. They're the ones that are making the arrests, and they're getting the reports from individuals who says, I was a victim of aggravated assault, I was a victim of robbery or a victim of larceny. And those are the numbers that aggregate out into the way we did the report. So the critics are critical because they're looking at an election day coming up. You'll make your decisions on election day. But from our standpoint, what we're talking about now over a 5-year period of time is accurate. Crime is down in Westchester County, and the fear of crime is up because you turn on TV and you see crime going on in other jurisdictions. Things concern you in other parts of the country, and we're not wrong. And we don't think that it's a static situation. Crime isn't down today, it's going to be down forever. We have to work every single day to help reduce crime. When we submit the budget, you'll judge how much money are we putting behind our police operation and how is that money allocated to use. And at the same time, we're still implementing reforms to our police operations. We've implemented for over $6 million a mental health crisis response team that we've had about a year plus, not quite 2 years, worth of working in the system to try to deal with certain individuals who have mental health issues and are acting out in the public domain, to try to de-escalate and handle those situations in an intelligent way. That did not exist previously, not recently, and we've reestablished that. And we've got bugs to work out of the system. Nothing's perfect, and nobody's presenting it as perfect. But I do caution you that in the campaign season, people will make claims, and you need to assess whether those assertions are right or wrong. I welcome an assessment of what we've done comparing 2017 to 2022, and then, of course, the upticks that happened in between that period of time. And if we're up somewhat from 21 over 20, or 22 do over 20? There's a reason for it. The COVID situation of 20 has its impact, but we're working hard together cooperatively to try to do the right thing. Taxes, environment, crime, three of the key most important issues that you have on your mind, and we want to share with you what we're trying to do to deal with those things. Next, we'll tell you a little bit about one of the fun parts of government, that's parks. We have a tremendously extensive park system. Ken will cover some of the things coming up over the next week to 10 days. Ken.
Thanks, George. Tuesday, so starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Till 12 noon at Lasden Park up in Katona. We're going to have Gardening Tuesday, so enhance your gardening skills and plant knowledge by working side by side with the gardeners at Lasden Park. Those tasks are going to include basics like planting, watering, weeding, pruning, staking, deadheading, potting up, and more. And that's going to be every Tuesday right through November 26th. And for those folks that do gardening out there, they're out there all the time doing this thing. So it's very important to make sure that you get your mean green garden on. So again, up at Lasden Park on the 17th, that's Tuesdays from 10 to 12 right through November 26th. We're going to have tomorrow as well, tomorrow evening, the Halloween People with Disabilities Dance at the County Center. So that's going to be another important thing, 6:30 to 9:30. Registration is required for that, and you certainly will have that number up on the screen to be able to follow up on that. Again, so the Halloween People with Disabilities Dance at the County Center is going to be a fun time, and whatever opportunities that we have, again, you have to register in advance for that. On Thursday, the 19th, from 9 to 9:30, we're going to have the stroller and cruiser walking group at the Alfred B. Del Bello Muscoot Farm up in Katona, so you can get out a chance to get out the house, walk around with your newborn or toddler. It's an early morning walk, but it's an early morning walk on one of the farms in the nationally accredited 18,000-acre farm system, park system. You'll get a chance to see some animals, get some fresh air, move around the barns, talk around with other people in the same condition as far as strollers and cruiser walking group, talking to people instead of just babies, and that's going to start. That's on October 19th, and then we'll have that again in November, November 16th. So October 19th and the 16th, we'll have that. This Saturday coming up, we're going to have Birdhouse Gourds Crafting, and that's going to be at the Hilltop Farm and Environmental Center in Yorktown Heights. Birdhouse gourds are a part of an indigenous technique for maintaining field health. So you learn how to decorate one and take one home. Again, that's on Saturday. And then Saturday afternoon, back up at Alfred B. Del Bello Muscoot Farm. It's going to be trick-or-treating, so you'll have a chance to visit with the animals and trick-or-treat at the barn doors. Treats will be available while supplies last, and costumes are certainly encouraged. So again, that's what we have going on in the nationally accredited county park system. Back to you, George.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks, Ken. We're going to wrap up our report with a quick update again on the migrant situation. We have, in Westchester County, really done very little change in the makeup of the migrant population here in Westchester County over the last number of months. We had a placement that dates back now 5 months ago in Yonkers, and then we had a trio of placements that date back two placements that date back 4 months ago in Ardsley and in White Plains. The total number of individuals that are with us today still totals in the same category of about 400 plus individuals, primarily skewed to adults. The children are a percentage of it, probably about a third of the population that is with us. We have asserted from the people that are operating the different departments that the vast majority of those children are not of school age. There are a couple that appear to be of school age. I think we have 2 individuals that are of school age within that total mix. There have been no crimes reported, much less dealt with. In any of these sites, there's been no spread of disease. And that's very important because the issue of migrants is a macro issue. It's a nationally debated issue. There are people who don't want to have people here from across the southern border. And they could hold whatever public policy position they want. It's a free country, you have free speech. But you can't assert that crime has followed, and you can't assert that disease has followed, and you can't assert that disruption has followed that, because these 3 placements in Westchester County have been well managed. We want to thank the cooperation we have with Westhab at the Yonkers site, and certainly be congratulative of the local governments in Yonkers, City of White Plains, and Village of Ardsley in being able to work to administer these things. The county's role has primarily been a health department role with the potential backup of public safety if needed, but they seem to have managed things pretty well. There's been no specific designated tax dollar allocation in Westchester County for these placements. New York City is responsible for the room and the board on these individuals. The vaccination program that we have that were applied to migrants is a vaccination program that's widespread for children of all types, and having another 100 children added to the program means nothing when we're doing thousands of vaccinations within a year. And we've been able to manage all of these things well. So we're comfortable at this point that things are being managed as well as they can be. We've had no further placements from the City of New York, and of course the issue is unresolved. I've called once again for there to be a federal immigration court established at the U.S. District Courthouse here in White Plains, and that every migrant asylum seeker family that's here have their cases brought to the White Plains case, brought them up for adjudication so these people can have their cases adjudicated. I'm advised that they cannot get bipartisan support in Congress to move forward on the changes needed in the legislation. There is legislation that fixes the procedure as it exists today. It needs to be modified in order for there to be advanced waivers for work, and there needs to be modified in order for these cases to be adjudicated with more judges and localized courts, and there's an unwillingness. I don't want to get into the partisan world, but pretty clearly there's one part of the aisle that wants no migrants of any sort and wants a large wall and keep everybody on the other side. There's another side that will say, we'll work through how we manage a reasonable amount of flow, make some modifications to manage this, and of course there's no agreement on doing those things. But from our standpoint here, we are certainly trying to work forward in as positive as possible, and I think it's important to note, month after month after month, we're reporting no increase. We're reporting no hidden pockets of migrants in different places that are rumored, and no crime, no disease spread. And I think that is a sign that our strategy of being rational and managerial in our approach has worked. It has not incentivized an expansion, and it has not made an unlivable situation for individuals. I do want to mention that this week, Ken and I will be present at the ribbon cutting for some additional affordable housing units that are being opened in the village of Rye Brook. It's called Brookridge Gardens. It's a complex located that's close to the Rye Ridge Shopping Center in the village of Rye Brook, and Rye Brook Village, in having these additional units come online, are doing another step in their share. Everybody's trying to do a share. We had some projects open in communities like Portchester and Greenberg and Peekskill recently that are communities that have been seen historically as very amenable to more affordable housing. This is an example of a property in Rye Brook. I recall being at a ribbon cutting up in North Castle in Armonk, where they added some units as well. So if everybody does a little bit, we'll make progress. But our studies have shown us that the need for affordable housing has grown over the last number of years. And the report that we had a few years ago that showed a need of 11,000 units now is estimated to be as high as 18,000 units. We've produced in the vicinity of 2,000 to 3,000 units on the ground. We've got another similar amount, 2,000 to 4,000 in the pipeline. But we're still well short of what we need because the affordability factor is universal. And we have a county that does not have large swaths of open land that you can work with easily. But we're doing what we can in terms of affordable housing, trying to make the progress that we can. So we'll share that with you as well. We have more things coming up. I mentioned we'll discuss the capital budget a little bit later this week. We'll have this affordable housing ribbon cutting. We'll be doing other programs that will give you an idea. But this gives you a flavor of what's happening in Westchester County government. You're welcome to reach out to us. 995-2900 reaches our executive floor. 995-2800 reaches your Westchester County legislator in the Westchester County Board of Legislators. We'll continue to work cooperatively. We'll continue to work bipartisanly. And we hope we continue to work effectively. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.